Pound the Rock is the story of the stonecutter. The lowly person, he goes to the mountain every day and pounds the rock to make the stone. Pounds it 1 time, 10 times, 100 times. The rock does not break, but he has perseverance. He will keep pounding the rock, and he has hope. In fact, it's not just hope, it's confidence. He knows that the rock will break. Was it the last strike that made the stone? The answer is no. Every single strike, every moment, whether in times of victory or frustration, what you do every day will make the difference. That is what we will have to do together until we get the job done. When we see injustice before us, we are called upon by a moral responsibility to fight back.
Chito was a leader with a big vision for our country.
It was always very clear where he stood. He stood for freedom. He stood for liberty. He stood for justice.
Wherever we find human rights violations, wherever we find an attack on human rights, we must speak up against this, because an attack on human rights is itself an attack on democracy.
Chito's fearless, a very pure heart, and he can stand up to against the evil, the totalitarian, the oppression. He stand up not for himself, but for other people.
I would describe him as an ordinary man who is absolutely extraordinary, because he shows that with his passion and his belief, he shows no fear at all in what he does.
I'm Cecilia Rodriguez Cosgayon Gascon. Chito is my eldest son. When he was in Don Bosco, he was just study all the time. From the school to coming home, always with the book in his hand.
My name is Miguel. I'm the younger brother of Chito. So I come next to him. So we are a family of 4 siblings. Nung high school, yung mga outreach programs, they would stay for a day or 2, at mga liblib na lugar, really depressed areas. Doon siya namulat. No? Doon niya nakita, ang kahirapan ng mga tao, ng Pilipino, na I think even poverty for him was a human rights violation. When the rich can enjoy and yet the poor suffered that way. Lalong-lalo na nung pumasok siya sa college at he joined the school council, and then that's when it all happened.
I'm JJ Soriano. I was the Vice Chairman of the UP Student Council in 1985 to 1986, when Chito Gascon was the Chairman of the Student Council. When he joined the UP Student Catholic Action, where I was a member as well, we had formed a political party in the campus. It was called Tugon, which eventually became Nagkaisang Tugon. He started off really as a mimeograph operator. And he practically did that 24/7 without any complaints. And that was his main job. After Chito joined in 1981, we actively participated in campus politics and became one of the contending groups in the campus. And we kept fielding our candidates until in 1985, we decided to field a full slate, and we actually won that council in 1985. No? And in the intervening period between the time I met Chito in 1981 and 1985, as you know, in 1983, Ninoy was assassinated. And there was a lot of student involvement in the rallies, demonstrations, and fight against Marcos and his regime, and to help bring it down. And in 1985, when we had already won the student council and we were running the student council, it so happened that Marcos called for a snap elections, and as a council, we voted to support the candidacy of Cory Aquino.
I remain optimistic that we who offer ourselves as the hope of this nation will rise to the occasion and finally and unconditionally make the sacrifices now demanded of us.
I would think that the people power, the revolution, was one of the reasons or that propelled him to really be a lawyer for the human rights for the oppressed.
During the martial law, I was with them in the rally because that is what they're supposed to do for our country.
President Cory, when she won, immediately had the plan to constitute a constitutional commission to write the new constitution. No? And a guiding principle in forming this commission was sectoral representation. And naturally, there should be a representative from the youth. Considering the role that Chito played and the fact that he was from the UP Student Council, he was chosen to be the member of the Constitutional Commission. Chito was the youngest Constitutional Commission member that was appointed by President Cory. No? I think, if memory serves me right, he was the one who suggested that there be a commission created for human rights to ensure that human rights are protected.
I'm Melissa Gascon. I'm the wife, the spouse of Chito. Actually, I saw him back in 1989. I was a freshman in UP. I belong in Samasa, yung political student party na kalaban ng Tugon, which he belongs to. And then, fast forward to 1996. Nag-meet kami sa UP College of Law. He saw me there, tapos lumapit siya sa akin. Yun, he asked me my name. He would always tell me that when he saw me, sabi niya, she's the one. Parang, mahal, when I saw you, you're the one.
Ang pinakasalan ko sa masa, pero ako, tugon-tugon.
Very romantic si Chito eh. He's as passionate sa mga advocacies niya. Passionate din siya magmahal. Actually, nung nandun siya sa Cambridge, nagplan pala siya na para papuntahin ako doon. Talagang special. Tapos, nagpunta kami sa continental Europe, and when we were in Paris, dun siya nag-propose sa Sacré-Cœur, sa Montmartre. A year after we got married, March 28, 1998. As a husband, kunyan, pagtatawag ako, definitely sasagot yan. Kunyari, even when he was teaching pa, in La Salle or in the other universities, he would answer the phone in the middle of the class na, hello, mahal, ganyan, so everybody would laugh.
My dad, you know, he's a very iconic person. He did a lot. He wrote a constitution. Whenever I had AP or social studies assignments, he'd be the first one to help me out and got me good grades in those subjects. I really liked art, and Dad was the one who was pushing me to do art more. He would let me pursue them if I ever wanted to.
In 2016, 30 years after the restoration of democracy, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, popularly elected with a sweeping mandate, launched what he called a war on drugs as the centerpiece program to a strongman platform to establish what he promised to be law and order in our society. As it has unfolded, this so-called war has become a war against the poor, against human rights, and against the rule of law.
We were so floored with what happened, no? Because of the scale and pace of the killings, we had to regroup and try to come up with ways by which we can respond to this grave human rights situation that we are confronted with.
We must remember that each one of us, by doing what we can where we are with what we have, pushing back against this injustice, we can each become the spark that will light the fire that will restore our republic.
We really felt his passion, his perhaps the feeling of frustration over the fact that this is happening in the Philippines after what we have done in the past so many years, after people power, after the restoration of democracy.
Now is the time to reimagine a vision of democracy, not as it was, but as it should become.
This is what's happening. The wanton disregard for life is something that really riled him up. And that's where his passion comes from, but that's where his frustration also comes from.
When the time comes, yung CHR, yung opisina dito, you are better abolished.
This Chito Gascon says he's not functioning as an objective human rights chairman commission. We should have the decency to resign.
Kung yun po ang mangyayari at magaganap, handa po tayong harapin yan dahil wala po akong ikinakaya at wala po akong ikinatago sa usapin ng aking trabaho at gagawin ko at gagampanin ko ang tungkulin ko sangayon sa nakatakda sa saligang batas.
Ito si Gascon, utang ina ka. Ang laro dito, patayan. I say to the human rights, don't give a shit with you. My order still the same. Kasi galit ako.
In the 28 years I've been in the commission, I've not seen such utter disrespect for people and for the institution itself.
The Duterte regime is in a way a forerunner for these kind of things. He was kind of a model for this kind of new populism, mobilizing social media and starting from a democratic base, but sort of took it over and turned it into a more authoritarian way.
Please rise those who are in favor of the motion of the Honorable Marcoleta reducing the budget of CHR to 1,000 pesos. Those who are against, please rise. Those voting in favor, 119. Those against, 32. The motion is approved.
We knew already that, this was going to happen. But we didn't expect that it was to that extent. And it was carried. Except for the 33, we thought then it was 32, except for the 33 representatives who stood up and said no to this.
Lumabas po ako sa session hall na paluha-luha. They were tears of joy because even though they were only 32 out of a house of about 300, they stood tall. They were courageous. They fought for what was right. And I saw their love for country.
There was backlash against that particular move. And then it went viral. Other people were saying, ang mga viral posts noon was that, give my taxes to CHR, etc.
Yung sigla, yung volunteerismo na ipinakita nyo itong nakarang araw, na siyang naging paraan para magbagong isip ang Kongreso. Dapat patuloy natin pasiglahin yan. Yung volunteerismo, yung pagkakaisa, yung pagsusulong.
The Senate actually saved us from that.
Apart from being fearless on any intimidation, which I believe he experienced a lot. If you are the fighter for democracy and human rights, you tend to be intimidated in some way. But he shows no fear. But more importantly is that he never resort to violence.
That kind of attitude and resilience that Chito possessed and exhibited, I think that could very well be something very important for us to learn and to adopt.
He meant his words. He meant what he said all the time, always. And when he spoke, I felt like I could learn a lot. And I learned a lot from him, as well as all the Filipino friends. The sense of truth and believe in yourself and speak the truth to power.
I was really praying na sana wag siyang magkaroon ng COVID kasi I really tried to prepare for it. He had this talagang cough na sa akin grabe kasi may time na I was talking to him, he couldn't even make a whole sentence na dahil ubo siya ng ubo. Parang sabi ng doctor, parang mild COVID, ganyan. Actually, napakalitan pa niya ako kasi sinabihan niya ako na, mahal, I can still breathe on my own. I'm going to the hospital but not now. I think yung hesitation niya to go to the hospital is because ayaw nga niyang makakuha ng slot na baka meron pang mas malalang COVID, mas severe COVID. Na makuhanan niya ng slot.
I thought he won the battle against COVID already. And then, one day, that was early morning of October 9, when I received a call from Melissa, the wife of Kuya. So, nung nakakita ako ng tawag ng ganun kaaga, natakot na ako, kinabahan na ako because why would you receive a call at that early? And then Melissa was crying and I said no.
Pumanaw na po sa edad na 57 si Commission on Human Rights Chairman Jose Luis Chito Gascon dahil sa COVID-19.
Well, I just cried and cried and cried. Almost, I don't know what. As I said, every time I hear the name Chito, I cry. It's hard to lose a son who is a very good son.
Alam niyo, yung namatay si Kuya, it was like more than 1 week of, like, I'll call it celebration. Because Although ang hirap tanggapin na 57 lang siya, pero yet pag inisip ko na yung mga nagawa niya, kahit i-multiply ko ng ilang 3 times yung buhay ko, parang hindi ko matutumbasan.
I'd like to remember him. He would just be my simple mahal. The guy that I've fallen in love with. My partner.
He's a man gone too soon, no? And I think people should remember Chito as someone who led a very simple life personally, but yet a very meaningful and significant life which had an impact on the lives of so many people, especially those that were having difficulties in keeping their dignity intact and keeping their heads high.
Today, the Philippines is at a critical crossroads whereby our people will choose either to return to a path of renewing our faith in democratic practices or to follow the alternative path of populist authoritarian rule that is currently sweeping the world.
Well, I would think he could be remembered as a just defender, a crusader, and a good servant.
A man with a great sense of integrity and a love for his people, for the Filipino people, and for his nation, the Philippines.
Yes, we will need more democracy, not less of it. More transparency, not fake news. More mechanisms to check against abuse of authority.
It's like a punch in the gut. So somebody who's so much to offer to the world could be snatched from the prime of his life. And that just didn't, it was difficult to contemplate, to accept.
The world has changed. Our democracy must evolve as well. We each have a responsibility to mount a response to this existential challenge that will affirm our most cherished values of truth over deception, the power of the people over strongman rule, and hope over despair. But we must do this together.
For me, it's a great loss. It's a great loss, not just for Philippines, but also for the world.
He talked from his heart. He fearless. When he speak with the young people, he encouraged them, and he told them that young people had a responsibility to make a better community, a better country.
Mag-isa lang siyang Chito Gascon eh. Pero siguro, kung sa aking maliit na makakaya, ay meron ako maiko-contribute sa pagpapatuloy kung ano man yung sinimulan niya until we meet again. Because this is not goodbye.
If there's one thing that Chair Chito is, he's a cheerleader. He leads us in all these chants. Pagka sinasabing CHR, dignidad ng lahat. Dignidad ng lahat, CHR. I'm sure he's cheering us on because he wants us to have a strong finish in the commission. But I think what he wants us to do is to stay true to our mandate till the very last day of this commission. And beyond that, we must carry on the fight because we know that human rights is an everyday struggle. So we cannot let up. We have to push back. We have to keep pounding the rock.
Manlaban! Manlaban! Man